I've only covered this guy once. He gave some really good information on Helldivers, that Helldiver situation as well. So this guy, at least the one time I did listen to his discussions. So let's see what he talks about here. Real talk: do graphics sell games anymore? I've already given it a like. He's a great character, content creator, and let's see what Maximilian Dude thinks about this subject. I have thoughts. Let's go! Right, this guy plays a lot of fighting games. Like all of his stuff is basically like model on fighting games and stuff. He plays an absolute boatload. I remember this guy. Yeah, this guy's like big on Twitch, big on YouTube. Yeah. Production values are insane.
Away from insanely high fidelity graphics, chat. I had a funny observation. Also, we were just talking during dinner. I think one of the contributing factors why Final Fantasy also has been decreasing in popularity over the years with FF16 and like Rebirth is also the fact that graphics don't exactly matter as much. And Final Fantasy as an overall series, as an overall existence, like the whole point of it, every new Final Fantasy game is gonna blow your balls off visually. All the way up until Final Fantasy 15 has that been true. And even FF...
Has that been... Okay. Final Fantasy VII, that was definitely true. I remember having my mind blown by full motion videos. It pretty much, in like one of my first times ever seeing full motion videos was playing Final Fantasy VII at launch. That part is true. Actually, Final Fantasy X. You guys remember Final Fantasy X? When Final Fantasy X launched on PS2, no game came even close to the graphics, to anything. Blitzball looked like it was from the future. It was crazy. So I don't know about 15. I stopped playing Final Fantasy games after X2. So I didn't play 12. I didn't play 13. I didn't play 14, and I've not played 15. But I did play 16. And I will say that already I do agree with him on a little bit, because I can definitely say that I think high fidelity graphics are too costly. And what are some of your favorite games recently, guys? One of my favorite games recently, Baldur's Gate 3. Another one of my favorite games recently, and as in perfect games, like really just top tier. Another one is Armored Core 6. Another one, Elden Ring. From just the past 2 years. Recent games. And those are some of my favorite games, even though they're not the best looking games. They're not bad. They're very nice. But yeah, exactly. Why are they good? They're good because of the fact that they're good games. And they're also good, Eeyore, because they're graphically made well in terms of graphic style. I think graphical style nowadays matters much more than graphical fidelity. I don't care if I can see every hair on someone's head. I do care if the entire style of the graphics looks and works really well together and works with the story, with the writing, with the characters, with the this, with the that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, BG3 is not highly graphically intense. Mage Power says it just looks good. Exactly. Correct. And everything works in terms of the graphics. Like, look at Last Epoch compared to Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is insanely graphically intensive. It costed hundreds of millions of dollars to make. And a team of 500 or whatever. It was crazy. The team is gigantic. And Diablo's team is actually, I think, the largest team that's working at Blizzard right now, even larger than World of Warcraft's team. And by comparison, Last Epoch is extremely graphically not intense. However, the graphical style of Last Epoch is freaking amazing. And you don't even care that if you zoom your character all the way in, you start to see the cracks and the lines in between, the rocks and stuff. It's like, a little jank. And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Because when you're playing the game, the graphical styles of every single stage you're in via the time travel. You're in the far future in one, you see like comets and black holes in the background. And then the ancient one, you see like dinosaurs roaming in the background and lumbering and all kinds of stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, it's definitely a graphical style thing. It's a graphical style thing.
7 remake to a certain degree, that shit was true, where it's like, oh my god, the upgrade from the previous system to this one, holy shit, bro. Like, Final Fantasy is the game that you buy to, like, justifies my console existence. Like, I buy this because look how good it looks. Like, holy shit.
Right.
Final Fantasy has always gotten a lot of sales based on that.
And 16 was gorgeous. However, I think 16 being gorgeous didn't really help it. It didn't really hurt it either. I think 16 was just too different of a game for people to really get into. And that's why it was considered like a financial failure. Also, Final Fantasy 15 was not exclusive to the PlayStation. Final Fantasy 16 was. And the sales numbers show a massive, massive drop-off of Final Fantasy 16 for really that major reason. I think that's the bigger reason, guys.
Relationship where people just don't give a shit about Final Fantasy, but it'll pick people up and get them to play because it's just visually gorgeous.
Right.
All I'm pitching is that graphics are obviously great, obviously beautiful, obviously makes you feel like, oh, my...
Also, games like Final Fantasy, they're generally harder to get into for a lot of people. Because, like, imagine you don't... So who here does not know Final Fantasy? Is there anyone in here that has never played a Final Fantasy game? If everyone's played one, then that's really fine. I mean, we are on Twitch. We are literally talking about video games at 4:40 in the morning Eastern time. So we're not the normal population of gamers. Never played one to completion. Gotcha. Watcher, can I ask you, why have you never played a Final Fantasy game? No wrong answer. But, like, what is it that made you never pick one up? Just out of curiosity. This is going to be a little bit of a thought exercise of why I think that Final Fantasy 16 was a financial failure. And I'm pretty sure you will talk about some of the reasons that I'll bring up. No rush, no wrong answer. Eeyore, why have you never finished one, out of curiosity? No wrong answer. Give me a sec. Let me fact check something. No worries. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious too. So here's I don't want to influence watchers' opinion. So I'm not going to say it yet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you're thinking about like previous one that you've played, watcher, don't worry about it. Just give me the answer regardless for why you've not played other Final Fantasy games. If there is one you ended up playing. Because like most people who play Final Fantasy play every Final Fantasy game. Like, I played every single Final Fantasy game up until X2, and then I played Final Fantasy 16. And I never finished it, but I played, like, you know, at least 24 hours into Final Fantasy 16. And the only reason I stopped playing it was because I ran out of time. And, like, I had to play other things and, you know, got busy with other stuff. My computer died, all kinds of other stuff. And it's, like, you know, extraneous stuff that stopped me from playing it. Final Fantasy 16 did not, in really any way, stop me from wanting to play it. You know, for some reason I thought Final Fantasy would... No, it's PlayStation exclusive. Yeah. It's PlayStation exclusive. No wrong answer. Just give me your thoughts. Because this is like more of a meta level discussion on do graphics sell. You don't really have a reason, just never knew about it. There we go. As a kid, you wanted to play Kingdom Hearts instead. That's a good answer. Do you know why, watcher? Because people who know Final Fantasy will always play Final Fantasy. That's a little bit of what his point is. People who are new gamers nowadays, or they play other things, say you play League of Legends a lot, or you play COD, or you play, you know, sports games, or whatever. Back in the older days, in PS2 days, if you were a Madden player or if you were a fucking Halo player like I was back in OG Xbox and stuff, I still played the Final Fantasy games. And the reason is because, like he's saying, back in those days, Everything on Final Fantasy was just so superior, you could not hear about it. And as soon as you saw Final Fantasy VII blow everything away from its competition, and Final Fantasy X do the same thing, and so on and so forth, Final Fantasy IX as well, it was just not even close. And you were like, holy crap, I got to try this. This looks crazy. And it was enough to draw you in because the difference was that wide. And now the difference of graphics between Final Fantasy 16, for example, and a Baldur's Gate 3 or an Elden Ring or, name any other action beat 'em up RPG, Nier Automata or whatever. It's just, it's not that far away from each other anymore. And like your eyes can only tell so much of a difference in graphical fidelity. So what he's saying is at some point, it doesn't even matter. It's not really a big draw for people anymore. And also, one of the reasons you might have wanted to play Kingdom Hearts Watcher is because it had characters that you knew. It had characters that you knew, like Disney characters, Aladdin, and this and that, a really catchy song. It had things that broadened it from Final Fantasy. It had some Final Fantasy elements in it, but the reason that Kingdom Hearts was such a breakout success was because it was very tertiarily related to Final Fantasy. It wasn't a Final Fantasy game. And that's why it was so special. And that's why it was so interesting for people. And that, yeah, you loved Goofy. Exactly. You loved, yeah, exactly. Goofy and Donald and Mickey and all the Disney characters and everything. And that's the exact point. Final Fantasy is very hard for new people to get into. When you look at Final Fantasy nowadays, and I said this when we covered the Square Enix news that they're no longer going to be exclusive. There are so many barriers of entry to play a new Final Fantasy game for someone who is not used to Final Fantasy games. First of all, they have 16 of the fuckers, and those are just the named ones. Those aren't like counting like X2 and 14 original and 14 relaunch and so on and so forth. This is just like the named numbered games. There's 16 of them. Now you and I, we know that you don't have to play Final Fantasy 1 through 15 in order to play 16. But random dude who plays nothing but COD, Halo, and Madden, whatever, that guy doesn't know that. They're looking at the Final Fantasy 16 number and looking at like, holy shit, man, I gotta play 15 of these fuckers? Holy crap, man. And then like say they know someone who's trying to convince them to play Final Fantasy. You're like, okay, what can I expect from the game? Oh, it's super immersive. The game is like this intricate RPG that tells you this really, really dramatic story. And first of all, people have already checked out with dramatic story, which is fine. I mean, this is not made for them, but that's a barrier of entry. And then they'll tell you the length of a Final Fantasy game. And the length of a Final Fantasy game for us who enjoy JRPGs is totally fine. I don't mind, and I like that games are sometimes 80 hours long, 100 hours long, 150 hours long. But Halo Bro does not want to play a 150-hour long RPG, guys. They barely played an RPG. That's the problem. That's the big problem. You look at I've watched and showcased a little bit of Asmongold on this channel. Asmongold never played a Final Fantasy game, I think, until Final Fantasy 16. And the reason is because he can't, and by can't I mean he doesn't want to, ever play turn-based games. So that cut out basically every single Final Fantasy game until Final Fantasy 16. So all of these things are various barriers of entry for anyone trying to get into Final Fantasy. That's all my point is. There's a lot of barriers of entry to Final, and also until now, Final Fantasy has been largely, almost completely exclusive to PlayStation, and that one is a huge barrier of entry. Who the fuck has a PlayStation 5? A lot of people now, but for the first 3 years when when Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one, when that came out on PS5, that was during like the big chip shortage and everything. And I remember people like literally running over each other to try to get the rare PS5. Yeah. I feel like our attention for gaming is already has also gone away. Single player games are all trying to be multiplayer now. I think that a lot of games are trying for that. I don't think that's really like too big of an issue though, because we still see single player games succeed. Like Elden Ring is very, very, very largely a single player game. And the only multiplayer mechanics around it are multiplayer mechanics that were in every single other From Software game for summoning bosses and stuff like that as well. And that's like very limited. Actually, the summonings and the multiplayer aspects of Elden Ring are completely understated and far less available and far more hidden than every other From Software game. So it's a largely, very, very largely a single player experience. I think single player experiences can succeed, but they have to do things very well to grab you. So I will say that multiplayer is a huge draw, and also multiplayer is a huge draw for creators. Sorry, not creators. For the game creators, props, and that's one reason we see multiplayer aspects being put into every game, because they know if Captain Corgi plays with 4 of his friends, he's less likely to quit the game halfway through, and he's more likely to convince his other friends to buy the game. So it's a form of marketing. It's a form of like word of mouth marketing. That's one reason why. Tales of Symphonia was a JRPG that turned me off to JRPGs. I was looking forward to playing a new game plus, but didn't have enough style points to carry over anything. Oh, that's a weird mechanic. Yeah, Eeyore, I never heard of that mechanic. Yeah, that pissed me off too. Yeah, I mean, new game plus for like, Dark Souls is like, you beat the game, you're a new game plus. Doesn't matter what build you did, doesn't matter if you no-hitted it or you took like literally 3,000 deaths to get to the end of the game. Doesn't fucking matter. You got to the end of the game, new game plus. Have at it, buddy. Yeah, it's exactly. That's weird. I don't know why they put such an arbitrary thing there. As a kid and teen, games were things I played between hours of farm work. When summer it was Gran Turismo. An older kid had PS1 and Gran Turismo. Yeah, man. Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid was huge for me. I love Metal Gear Solid. A lot of that is because our companies are insistent on making everything live service. Yes, and it's because of money. Live service for people in the games industry translates into, as in like, the executives, it translates into you can make forever money from this game. The problem is most live service games fail because they're shit. Because they're just bad games. They're just bad. Like, they're just really bad. And the other reason is that the live service is tacked on as an afterthought. And games are arbitrarily made to be live service when they have no business being live service. Case in point, Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers as a single player game was fantastic. 30 hours, it was awesome. The game only became bad when you got to the end game, and it was an endless grind with the same enemies over and over again, and it was just fucking mind-numbingly boring. That was the problem with Marvel's Avengers. Exactly. Yeah, you didn't know it released. Yeah. Really? Oh, wow, okay. That's fair.
System is worth it. This console generation specifically, I don't feel like graphics are selling games anymore.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
The games that all of a sudden just like
I will say also, graphics are raising the barrier of entry for game makers as well. Because, dude, look at GTA 6. GTA 6, Rockstar is making GTA 6. They're already talking about how they put $2 billion with a fucking B, by the way, guys. Billion dollars into the development of GTA 6. That's crazy. Yeah, billion with a B, exactly. And it's the problem is that when games are this expensive to make, they have to cram it with so many ways to monetize, and they have to focus on trying to sell like 1 billion fucking copies in order to get their money back. That's the problem. So the fact that Diablo 4 costed so much made the line of which they had to reach in order to make profit really, really, really extremely high. The same thing with Final Fantasy 16. They focused so much on graphical fidelity and everything that when the game sold well, but it didn't sell as well as they wanted, they called it a financial failure. It still sold several million copies. We can check exactly how many right now. How many copies did FF16 sell? 3 million. 3 million. Oh, no. Actually, no. That's in the first month. Fuck. Is there a total number? Yeah. It's been a long time since then. Right. The numbers are so bad, and Square Enix is so pissed off about the numbers of sales for Final Fantasy 16. They've actually not released updated numbers. That's what it is, guys. So, 3 million copies in his first week. Which is... Yeah, I can't really make the point anymore. I was going to say that they just didn't hit the numbers that they needed. Okay, well, Final Fantasy 16 cost to make $300 million. $300 million. Okay, so it sold 3 million copies in its first week and made $84 million. And it costed $300 million. So that means because of the cost of the game, and that does not include marketing, by the way, guys, they would have to sell probably about 12 to 15 million copies in order to be happy with their profit. And they're nowhere near that. At least we can say they're nowhere near that, even with extrapolation. Because the first week of a game, when it sells, is the largest weeks that it'll have. Larger week of sales it'll have. What is this? Kingsfield? What is this about? Read the top subtitle. Beautiful 3D polygon graphics, yeah. Gorgeous. From Software. Oh, man. Dude, I loved Kingsfield, man. I never finished it. That game was too hard for me, but goddamn, that game was so good. That game was so good. Yeah, exactly. GTA always sold very well. Well, no, that's the thing. Props. GTA 5 had an exorbitant price as well. Cost to make. So GTA 5 cost $265 million to make. If you never wondered why they focus so much on online, they didn't release major DLCs. All they did was release the online and sell microtransactions for money in GTA 5. And this is why. The game was so expensive to make. In order to make their money back, like I said, you either have to have really high numbers or you put fucking microtransactions in your game. That's what Rockstar did. Exactly. Exactly correct. Exactly correct. And that is exactly why. Yeah. GTA Online, GTA 5 made billion on day one. No, that's true, ER. I mean, you can make it big. But the thing is that they're still only making 3x their money. A game company like Rockstar, when they're publicly traded and everything, they want to make way more than this. They want that number to keep going up. Number go up, number good for publicly traded companies. That's the problem. That's the problem. But yeah, I mean, 1 billion sounds like a lot for us, right, guys? It's not enough for these companies. These AAA companies that are publicly traded, they want more. Yeah, they don't want a fixed profit. Exactly. That's the problem. That's the problem. Yeah, Rockstar even screwed devs out of bonus. Exactly. Exactly, Eeyore. Yeah.
Explode and are on top, like all of a sudden through virality and whatnot, are good-looking games, but are they like the Uncharted's or something like that really push visuals and all this kind of shit? Not really. Like the virality of certain games sort of blows up. It is due to other reasons other than just straight visual.
It's due to writing. It's due to graphical style. It's due to being a good game. Helldivers is not the most graphically intensive game. I could run Helldivers on my computer that died just fine, and it looked great, but it didn't look like mind-blowingly gorgeous. However, what is Helldivers? Helldivers is an extremely stylized game, and it gives you the feel via the sound, the rain, the enemies, the explosions, oh my god, the myriad of explosions, and it makes you feel like you're in a war zone. It's stylized. Graphical style trumps graphical fidelity these days. Quit having the same brain. So yeah, exactly. Great minds think alike, Bert. Exactly. And also, Helldivers 2 didn't cost nearly that much to make. When Helldivers 2 launched, they only expected about 40,000 people to be playing that game concurrently. And they were blown away when the numbers reached 1 million. But they didn't plan for that. 40,000 concurrent players at launch would have been them making a profit. That's what that tells you. Exactly. Yeah, oh, dude, Zelda games are huge. Oh, my God. Well, I don't know Skyward Sword, but I will share one that I do know. And Wind Waker is the exact perfect comparison. What's the name of that game? The one where you turn into a werewolf. What's that one? I forgot the name. It wasn't Skyward Sword. It was chat, help me out here. Thank you. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Images. Versus Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Look at Skyward Sword. Okay, I mean, I'll show Skyward Sword because, like, I never played Skyward Sword is the reason I'd played Twilight Princess, never played Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword. Look, you can see it. When did it come out? 2011. It came out almost... So, Skyward Sword came out after Twilight. Yeah, because Twilight Princess turned 15. Interesting. Oh, I see. Yeah, that looks... Ooh. It looks a bit... Ooh. And yeah, you compare this, which is a far newer game, and this is only on Wii. Yeah, this wasn't GameCube and Wii. This was just the Wii. Versus Wind Waker, which still holds up today. I was at my cousin's house right before COVID. I mean, granted, that's 2019, but still, it was right before COVID, and I played Wind Waker, and it still felt fresh. And the reason and we played through pretty much all of Wind Waker together. Like, it was just me and my cousins, you know, goofing around, sharing the controller, and it's future-proof. Exactly. And it's because of graphical style. Completely perfect point, Ryan. Exactly, completely perfect allegory. Absolutely. You don't like the style? I love the style, man. Wind Waker is my favorite game of Zelda of all time. And I love Zelda games. I live and breathe Zelda. I played almost all of them. I haven't played the newest ones. A little lag behind that. But, you know, the original Zelda games all the way through. Dude, I played the shit out of them, man. Oh, my God. Majora's Mask? Yeah, exactly. Great game. Transformers Devastation. I'd never played it. Oh yeah, it's like cartoony and everything. And it's because it's cel shaded, and yeah, this looks great. And if you play it right now, you'll be like, wow, what a cool graphical style. Yeah, exactly. Wasn't it the quarry? Wasn't what the quarry? Lana. What are you talking about with the quarry? The werewolf? Oh, no. I was that was a horror game. Yeah, I was talking about Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, you kind of turn into a werewolf. Yeah, sorry, this is a different game. Yeah. Sorry about that. It's a little confusing. Where did my video go? There it is.
So now you get clearly amazing looking games, which
right.
is Rebirth and 16. Gorgeous games, like holy shit, dude. But they don't perform as well.
And it's because the cost is so high. So they need it to perform to an absurd degree, which it's really difficult to reach that. You basically need to make sure you hit that like 0.01% of like sales figures where you're just like fucking rocking it, as opposed to just being a successful game. And it's because your costs are exorbitant because of how fucking crazy graphically fidelity, high the graphically fidelity is. It takes so much money and work to make it.
because people just aren't in it for the visuals anymore. And then you get something like Elden Ring, and I like this comparison. I'm gonna be real.
Dude, he's so smart. Who the fuck brought up Elden Ring? He's so smart, man. This guy, good content creator. Anytime I'm watching a video and someone agrees with me, they're smart. He's smart.
Gorgeous game. But
yes.
I just looked at the gameplay trailer, and that bitch-ass game is not graphically impressive, bro. They're like doing all these zoom-ins and tight shots of shit, and I'm like, yeah, this game is kind of rough visually.
If you go into a bush and you zoom in on that bush, bush looks pretty jank. There's nothing wrong with it because it graphically works together so well. And it's so nicely made, and everything works together, and the style blends into the gameplay, and so on and so forth. And so Elden Ring is one of the best games of all time for that reason. But the graphics didn't really sell me on it. I didn't give a shit about the graphics. Yeah, Randy was not more high fidelity. Yeah, exactly.
Most games now, if you like zoom in so much, and it still looks good, and it's like, that's important.
George R.R. Martin.
No. Games like Elden Ring, and even especially FF7 Rebirth to a certain degree, you zoom in with a microscope, and you get this close, and you're like, wow.
He's absolutely right.
This game looks like shit. But then
he is absolutely right. He's completely correct on this.
You go back from here, and you're like, whoa, this game's gorgeous. Like, even Zelda game, Breath of the Wild.
Perfect comparison. Like I said, Last Epoch versus Diablo 4. You zoom all the way in Diablo 4, everything still looks gorgeous. You zoom all the way in on Last Epoch, it looks jank as shit. However, Last Epoch works so stylistically well, they're a small team that didn't have to spend hundreds of millions of fucking dollars in order to make their game. And as a result, they could sell Last Epoch for $30 and still make a crazy, crazy profit, with far fewer players playing it than Diablo 4. And they don't have to add crazy microtransactions to it. I don't know what that is, Eeyore. I'm so sorry. What is it?
From here, this game's gorgeous. Zoom in. This game looks like fucking trash, dude.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do this anymore, personally. For a lot of
Last Epoch, yeah. If you like RPGs,
crazy shit that's in them, I don't think we need to.
Last Epoch is a crazy good indie ARPG that stylistically has so many really good choices in it, both in terms of gameplay and graphics and stuff. It works so well as a very small team who made it, to the point that Diablo 4 copied half of the shit from Last Epoch in order to make their own fucking game better. That's why Season 4 of Diablo 4 is so good, because it copied half of the mechanics of Last Epoch.
To just peer into every corner, every facet. It's making games take way too long to come out. If there is a problem with this
Ryan
in the industry that I personally hate, why the hell are games taking 4 to 7 years to come out?
Exactly.
That is where shit
This is very true. The development time for games has also gone up. He's absolutely right on this. To the point that, like, so say you're developing Final Fantasy 16 and you're coming up with an idea for Final Fantasy 16 and you need to pivot halfway through. You've already put in $150 million. This didn't happen, but like, say it did. $150 million and 3.5 years worth of development when you make that pivot. And you're only halfway fucking done with the game. Like, it's crazy how long games take to develop now. Exactly.
Needs to change. We do not need that extra fidelity. We don't. Where you spend so much money on this shit, you're effectively 7, 8 days, 9 days, 12 days into your lethal company profit quota. And you're the Spider-Man 2 devs looking at that profit quota. And it's like, well, it cost us so much money to get here. And
I think it costed, what, like, literally $300 million or something to make Spider-Man 2. And it sold well, but it didn't sell well enough to, like, blow the pants off of the entire, company that made it. So it was considered not a super financial success. It's crazy because Spider-Man 2 is still a very well-selling game, but it costed so much and took so long to make.
We have to make that.
It didn't even get Game of the Year. It did not get Game of the Year last year. Why? Because a game that is less graphically intensive, but better stylized and just a better overall game, where they were able to focus on all of the you know, actual aspects of the game, the gameplay, the storylines, the branching storylines, the character creation, this and that, as opposed to, you know, just the graphics. So Spider-Man 2 is a game that is what, like at most 30 hours long. And Baldur's Gate 3 is infinite hours long. So yeah, it's just not even close. It's just not even close.
Much fucking money on this shit and we don't hit the quota. Now people are laid off, even though you had like a banger of a run. Your game was incredible. It's like, this is not a functioning business anymore. This isn't. This doesn't work out this way, dude.
Right.
Through the looking glass at every single tiny bit and piece of everything. It isn't fun for us. It doesn't add any actual element to the game. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't. I think the majority of games do not need to do that shit.
Right. I completely agree.
They shouldn't be doing that shit. To be real, you know what games are also like that? And they really kind of fall apart when you get that close to things. Almost all of Capcom games in RE Engine. You really look like, take a sniper scope with Leon and RE4 and zoom in and look at little spots.
Dude, not even that. Here he's making the right point. Kind of. But the biggest problem is that the RE engine, when it's not optimized supremely well, instead of getting an RE4, which is optimized well, because Capcom does not fuck around with Resident Evil games. They want to make sure they get that shit right. They remember the sting of Resident Evil 3 Remake. But the problem is the RE engine was used for Dragon's Dogma 2. And there's a reason I call Dragon's Dogma 2 Dragon's Dog Shit 2. Because that game is so unoptimized, it is still unplayable for PC in like, what is it? Like 70% of cases of PC players can literally not fucking play Dragon's Dogma 2. So guess what? Dragon's Dogma 2 did not sell nearly in the numbers it needed to for Capcom. Still made a tidy profit for them, but it definitely did not sell in the numbers that Capcom wanted. And why is that? Because it was a game that people could barely play. And it had major issues at launch. And still does. The optimization issues, the performance issues are still not fixed in Dragon's Dog Shit 2.
And you're like, this looks like shit.
Yeah.
This actually kind of looks sort of bad. But from the natural
exactly, you are. It's a long one. Yeah.
It's fucking beautiful. It's beautiful. Seemingly, Capcom has gotten Dragon's Dogma 2 is, yeah, I'd imagine no exception, even though we didn't really look at that game too much. All I'm saying is that Capcom has seemingly found a pretty decent balance. You know what game's also like that? Monster Hunter World.
Yeah. Oh, Monster Hunter World looks like shit. If you scroll in, oh my god, it looks jank as shit. But it's so stylized that you're not paying attention to the gory details of every brain cell that you can see on someone's head. It doesn't matter. It's a game about beating up giant monsters. So you go around beating up giant monsters and it's optimized well. And you're able to play through it and, you know, jump on monsters' backs and crash them into walls. And that's what the game does well. That's all it needs to do. And guess what? I bet you Monster Hunter World made beaucoup money for them. I don't know the numbers. Could probably look it up. But he's absolutely right on this. This is Monster Hunter World is a prime example of style and graphical style trumping graphical fidelity, and the substance of the game being far more important than anything else.
It's the same shit. That game is fucking butt ugly.
Mantella? I don't know what that is.
And you just look at
I heard of that one.
spot. It's fucking butt ugly. But when you're running and doing things,
yeah,
it's gorgeous. Dude,
I wouldn't go so far as to say gorgeous, but it works. It
awesome.
works.
That's what I'm saying. It is an old engine. It's an old-ass game.
Exactly.
A decade-plus old engine. But they were able to pump out the best-selling Capcom game ever on technically old visuals. Now,
I did not feel that the game was jank enough that I didn't want to play it. That's the thing. I did not even care for Monster Hunter World because it just felt well, it played well, and that's what the most important thing was. And the graphical style, which is, you know, slightly cartoony and silly and, you know, vibrant colors and things like that, it worked for what it was, and that's all it needed to do.
I go back and I look at it, and it's like the Switch
Skyrim
is the
mod,
best example of that. You know, even Monster Hunter Rise looks like an upscaled fucking PSP game at times.
It does,
and it
yeah.
sold a shit ton, and it's insanely rough looking. And I forgot about the visuals of Monster Hunter World when I was
And because they limited Monster Hunter Rise to the Switch at first, Monster Hunter Rise looks worse than it should as well. Exactly.
playing Rise, just because it was like, well, this is great. So anyway, related to Final Fantasy, all I'm saying is that Final Fantasy is a franchise that has sort of been based on the fact that every single new Final Fantasy is going to blow your balls off with its graphics and make you feel like you spent that $400 to $500 on your console. We're going to make it worth it, bro. From the PS1 to the PS2 to the fucking PS3, even the PS4. To be real, FF7 Remake and Final Fantasy 15, you're like, God damn, dude, yeah.
I think interestingly, what he's saying is extremely correct. How could you say something so controversially and so brave? But also, I think that this is actually the same problem that Hollywood has right now as well. Hollywood movies, they're always trying to make the big billion-dollar blockbuster. So they spend like hundreds of millions of dollars making the movie. And that doesn't even include the marketing. So it's another $200 million of the marketing. And as a result, they have to make $1 billion at the box office or the movie is an utter fucking failure. And guess what? Very few movies make it to the $1 billion mark. It used to be, I mean, you know, before Marvel's Marvel movies hitting like Civil War, Endgame, Iron Man 3, and so on and so forth, before regularly Marvel movies were hitting that $1 billion mark, most movies didn't even come close to the $1 billion mark. Like, it was once in a blue moon. And nowadays, all of these big movies have to hit $1 billion or they're considered a failure. And it's because production costs are so high for movies, both for CGI. There's many reasons that this happens, but it's very much the same thing. Way long gone are the days that we could have, like, you know, a stupid, silly action flick that only costed $30 million to make. And when it made, like, you know, just a decent $100 million, it was considered a financial blockbuster. It still was. Didn't have to sell like 1 billion fucking tickets. It only had to be a moderate success, and it would be more than enough to pay everyone and be able to fund the next movie. Same thing in gaming. Exact same thing.
Shit, this feels like a big upgrade over PS3 shit. Hell yeah, this is pretty cool. Now we have the smallest amount of return investment on newer consoles compared to the
return on investment is exactly correct. What he's saying is the money that you're spending on a game to go from, okay, think of it in percentage wise, guys. So for games to get to an 80% level, say an 85% level of graphical fidelity to look really good in the modern day. Not mind-blowing good, but really good. It costs, you know, let's say a grand total of $100 million. Just $100 million. And that's like the Baldur's Gate 3 or the Elden Ring. And then in order to go from that 85% of graphical fidelity to the 100% of like the fucking nicest game you will ever see, it costs like an extra $250 million. So you're, from a very small percentage increase in graphical fidelity, you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just not worth it. Game developers think that that little increase in graphical fidelity will give them the eyeballs on their game and the boxes being sold at their game to the point that they'll make up their money. That's not the case anymore. People don't have that much money to spend in games anymore. We would rather spend $70 on a clear and complete product without microtransactions like Baldur's Gate 3 or $60 in Elden Ring instead of paying $130 for you know, the season pass and day one lock quests and shit like that for Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws. It's so fucking dumb. Oh my God.
This one, man. The amount of shit that has effectively changed from the previous generation to this generation.
Mario Kart Tour, yeah, exactly.
Relative perception is mad low. It is big, don't get me wrong. Load times and how that impacts.
Oh, load times is huge. I completely agree. That goes into like how smooth the gameplay experience is. The one thing that like you have to focus on in all these games, even if you're not hitting like the highest levels of fidelity, is how smooth is the gameplay experience. Gameplay experience is a gigantic factor for gamers. For me as well. Absolutely. If your game is not the most prettiest game ever, but it loads well and everything, it's totally fine. If your game is gorgeous and you have loading screens every 5 fucking minutes, it definitely gets annoying. See Starfield. And I think Starfield did a lot of things very well. But yeah, loading screens were a big problem in Starfield for a very major reason. That's one of it.
Overall game experience is profound. SSDs, in my opinion, are where this shit shines. That shit is amazing. But to be real, all of the extra time and effort going into raw visual fidelity is not worth the time or the return of investment from the previous generation to this one. It's just not worth it.
Dude, he is cooking on this.
Anything has really changed that much. This generation is...
I need to watch more of this guy's videos. This is completely on the money. I completely agree with him, and I think it's creating great conversation for all of us.
Really disappointing just in general. The only way that it's not disappointing is in SSDs, is in fast-ass loading, and now we can change our games to play differently because of fast loading. I think that is 100% worth
completely
it.
agree.
We're talking about just like, oh, am I super enthused about my
and
PS5
performance?
Or
performance
Xbox
is a big thing
over the previous one? Fuck no, dude. Absolutely not. There is still only one game.
I think console gamers are like addicted to, you know, tie about 30 FPS. But jumping from 30 FPS to 60 FPS on the regular, as in like, you know, playing every game at 30 and then playing every game at 60 and then going back to 30 is such a marked change. Like it really, really is. I think it's understated. And it's not like I'm asking for a game to be at 250 FPS. I mean, that's just stupid. But like the jump from 30 to 60 is absolutely a market increase.
On my PS5 that I emphatically feel is a substantial, massive upgrade from the previous generation.
Right.
Only one game, I still fire it up and go, holy sweet dumb hell.
Right.
Right there.
Oh, Demon Souls.
So to me, it's like from what I've played personally, this shit is the only thing that felt like it was a big update, right? A substantial update from the previous generation. What I'm saying is that I don't think it's...
No, I mean, I think games are a substantial... Like, this is a substantial update. Like, dude, I grew up on Final Fantasy VII. Looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake, my mind was blown. However, I still haven't finished Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, I still haven't gone back to it. Why? Because, like, the game is good, but I would rather play the other games that are stylized well and are just better gameplay experiences, and then, you know, play this at my own leisure at that point, which is totally fine. But like, this game didn't grab me enough because of the graphics to make me want to play the game. The ingredients that are there are divisive enough that I like the game, and I'll probably give it like a 9 out of 10 or something when I finish the game eventually. But it's not pulling me to turn on my PS5 and play this fucking game right fucking now, instead of playing like the other myriad of games that are just so enjoyable, from Baldur's Gate 3 to the Elden Ring playthrough that I'm doing right now to try to get ready for the DLC, and so on and so forth. So that in that way, the graphics didn't pull me. They're still gorgeous. They're a huge step up, but they're just not pulling me. And the reason is because, like he's saying, the graphics really just don't really matter anymore.
I think it's good that these games are running better, but is it worth it for these games to take like 5 to 6 years to exist?
Exactly.
To put in every goddamn
it took so
effort,
long.
Detail, developer time, concept art.
And also one of the reasons that Square Enix is so sad about the response and the selling of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is because of the development and how much it takes to make a graphically intensive game like this. It was like, what, a 3.5-4 year gap in between Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. if the gap was only 1 year, there's no doubt in my mind Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would have sold much better, because people would play and still have Remake fresh in their minds. People would still be doing their first playthrough and everything like that regularly, as opposed to, you know, just me being the outlier 4 years later. But like, most people would be in that little boat of like, yeah, we still remember Final Fantasy Remake. We want to see where the storyline goes next and see how the changes are, blah, blah, blah. And they would buy Rebirth in much higher numbers. A 4-year gap in the middle is insane. Is absolutely insane. And there's going to be another 4-year gap between Final Fantasy Rebirth and Final Fantasy whatever at the end, Revisited, or whatever they're going to call the third one, because the game is not even finished yet. They needed to split it up in 3 parts. Exactly.
All of this shit into the microscopic goddamn details of every
Gold Saucer. Yeah, Gold Saucer was fun.
I don't think it's worth it, man. I don't think it adds anything to the game either. For most developers to effectively throw out a game because it's so expensive,
the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Now, the game has to sell a shit ton, or else
exactly.
the studio is sunk. So it's
exactly.
Like, hey, we're gonna do this, and if it works, we're really gonna be in it. Or if it doesn't.
And thankfully, this problem that is, he's completely right about, we've been talking about games costing so much, and when they don't sell like gangbusters, it absolutely is like a failure for the game developer. For this reason, Square Enix has decided to not make their games console exclusive to Sony PS5 anymore. So in a very roundabout way, we somehow as gamers won. We'll be able to play all of our favorite games from Sony and from Square Enix on PC and stuff more regularly and stuff now, which is a good thing. This is only a good thing. And I think they're realizing the graphical fidelity. They talked about it in the article. I made an entire video about it. Definitely check it out. We go into a lot of detail about these things in that video, especially in the vein of Final Fantasy and Square Enix. That console exclusivity is going to more and more be a thing in the past.
Doesn't work. We're fucking
it was exclusive for a very long time.
Leads an industry to take no risks.
It was a timed exclusive.
Take any risks anymore. We lost this. We lost.
Square Enix is going away from timed exclusives now as well. They want to be able to concurrently release things on everywhere. Is volume super low?
That we fucked up here.
He's on max for me, guys.
That leads us to an industry that is not creative. Creativity is now.
I wish you had told me at the beginning of the video.
You just have to be safe and do this one thing that we know is going to work.
I would have turned it up.
The industry is made by creative people. The truly great games that are out there are made by creative people. It's the same thing for every goddamn thing. The stuff that we love so much is not made
fine.
at
Okay,
a board meeting. It's made by people who have a fucking vision, and they get everybody in line with their vision, and they execute within limited periods of time. Movie industries like that, the game industries like that, everything's like that with larger scale development.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, this is why people think Hollywood is failing, because Hollywood companies are going bankrupt trying to make, you know, $500 billion spent in the development of the movie with marketing and the cost, and at that point they have to make $1 billion, and otherwise if they don't, like I said, they're sunk. That's why Disney and Marvel are like fucking dying right now.
No, all I'm saying is that Nintendo of all companies seemingly is coming out on top now because they sort of get it. They knew they did not have to.
Not a single fucking Mario game costs $100 million to make. Not a single one. They don't have to sell that many copies. They're selling copies like crazy. With far less development time, they can spin out far more games all the time.
The push
power of the brand? Fidelity. No, it's power of development cost.
And people still
also the brand, but like development cost.
Even now with their next generation, they're moving to something potentially PS4 Pro in terms of visuals. Clearly their workload's going to get much bigger.
Right.
But dude, they're going to be in a spot where game development was at like 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And it's going to look way better, don't get me wrong, but still their choice to put out games isn't because they're taking forever to make. It's because that's just the way Nintendo fucking works. They do whatever the hell they want. They don't give a shit.
Well, I mean, they also realize like quantity of quality overspending, you know, 5 years making a single game. That's the big difference. That's the big difference.
They're gonna do what they want when they want, you know?
This was a great video. This was a great video. I completely agree, and I think we'll see a lot of game companies get sunk over the next 2 years that made this choice to go for like the $150 million gangbusters release, and it doesn't sell a billion copies, or they put like gigatons of microtransactions in the game, do gamer unfriendly practices in order to make that money back. The game doesn't sell well because no one wants to buy a game for $130 day one because you lock fucking quests behind day one DLC. Looking at you, EA and Ubisoft. EA and Ubisoft, I think, are going to be sunk in the next few years because of this. We've already seen Ubisoft's stock price go down. Let's see how it is. Ubisoft stock price. It's just a 1 day, 6 months, year to date. There you go. Okay, so they're coming a little bit back up, but man, dude, at their peak, 5.5 peak, all the way down to 4.82. That is a drop of like 18%. That is very bad for Ubisoft. This trending up is better for them, but man, like, holy shit. The fact that they've had multiple drops like this, dude, their investors are not fucking happy. Ubisoft themselves are not fucking happy. Why do you think they're trying to cram so many fucking microtransactions in their games? This is why. This is why Ubisoft does this. And this is why, at the end of the day, years on down the road, if they don't change their tune and they keep pulling this shit that they've already been doing with, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, is going to have some issues, and Star Wars Outlaws and many, many more, they're going to be sunk. They're going to be sunk. Exactly. They've already had to close several subsidiaries and do all these major things, major layoffs and everything for this reason. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think this is a great video. I hope you guys liked the discussion. Yeah, I completely agree. Stylized graphics will always trump, especially because you can focus more on the gameplay. The real thing is that it allows developers to focus on making the game just good. Last Epoch developers focused far less on graphics, and they focused far more on all the pain points of an ARPG experience, and they smoothed all those out. And that's why Last Epoch did so well. Every single pain point in an ARPG experience, Last Epoch made better in some way. To the point that fucking Blizzard had to copy every single lesson that Last Epoch handed to them on a silver platter. There you go. Kane? Who's Kane? Is that this guy? I thought his name was Maximilian, dude. Or is it like IRL name Kane? Whoever, if this is what you mean, this is like my second video of him, and he did a great job. Like, this was a great video. Definitely give this video a like and a sub. I'm linking it in the description below. Absolutely. Like I said, it's my second video watching this guy. Love this discussion, and hope you guys found our addition to discussion, me and my chat's discussion in here, valuable. And let's discuss more stuff anytime. Give this video a like, give it a sub, share it with your friends, and we'll catch you on the flip side with more gaming news, gaming discussions, meta level content, lots of fun stuff, lots of indie games as well. Quick BRB, my friends. I have to pee, and then we go on to our next thing.